NATO defense ministers are meeting in Brussels to discuss how to keep ammunition and weapons flowing into Ukraine. Western allies note that Kyiv desperately needs more military aid to sustain its momentum in the weeks ahead.
We see no signs that President Putin is preparing for peace. What we see is the opposite. He is preparing for more war, for new offensives and new attacks. So it makes it just even more important that NATO allies and partners provide more support to Ukraine.
The Kremlin has criticized that NATO has demonstrated its hostility towards Russia every day and that it is becoming more involved in the Ukraine conflict. Julia Chapman joins us live from Paris. Julia, we heard NATO there saying more is needed to be done, but how is NATO planning to address Ukraine's needs at this stage of the war?
Well, we've been hearing a lot about these big headline weapons like fighter jets, like tanks that Ukraine has been calling for. But today's discussions are focused on something even more simple, ensuring that Ukraine has enough ammunition, enough spare parts, and that the weapons that it already has and is using are being properly maintained. Western military experts saying that this is the key at this particular stage in the conflict, not necessarily providing bigger, more powerful weapons at the moment, but making sure everything is working so far and continues to do so. Now, of course, we have been hearing calls from Ukrainian officials, including President Volodymyr Zelensky last week, touring European capitals, including this one, asking Western allies to provide fighter jets to Ukraine. That is one of the weapon forms that haven't been provided. Tanks, we are now seeing promises from a number of allies. They will, in the months to come, find their way to Ukraine. But of course, they haven't arrived yet. There's a lot of training involved there. But certainly we are hearing more talk about ammunition and ensuring that there is enough, because Ukraine is estimated to be using around 6,000 artillery shells every single day. Some estimates say that Russia could be using 3 times that. So ensuring that there is enough supply of these basic pieces of weaponry is a really big priority for Western officials as they meet today. But there will also be other wider discussions that are only partially related to the conflict in Ukraine, including perhaps upping defense spending among NATO allies. There's a discussion that they should be going further than the 2% that they have committed of their annual GDP to defense. And also, of course, trying to get over the line for Finland and Sweden to become members of NATO, which Turkey, a NATO member, has been blocking so far.
Is there a sense, any sign at all, that support for Ukraine is perhaps waning?
Certainly not among the Western defense officials who have been very vocal about ensuring that Ukraine understands that there is still a very firm commitment from Western allies and ensuring that that message reaches Moscow. We heard those comments that you mentioned from Dmitry Peskov, the presidential spokesperson in Moscow, suggesting that NATO's involvement in the conflict was becoming clearer by the day, perhaps a veiled threat that NATO should be backing off, that Russia might be provoked into going further if it thought that NATO was already involved in this conflict. But Jens Stoltenberg, Lloyd Austin, the U.S. Defense Secretary, they have been insistent that that kind of rhetoric will not cause them to back down. We've been hearing that they are as firm as ever in their support for Ukraine. But one of the main things that will be discussed today is ensuring that the support for Ukraine militarily will not cause any harm to these NATO allies' militaries themselves, because they are providing a lot of weaponry, a lot of ammunition and artillery to Ukraine. And Ukraine is using it faster than they can be provided. To that end, we've heard from Germany today, which says that it has signed a deal with a domestic producer of artillery for its Gepard anti-air system. So that will become a big boon for Ukraine going forward.
Julia Chapman, live from Paris. Thank you.